Well, this year sure fucking sucked because everyone just died. There were also some pretty horrendous games that came out too, and I'm here to tell you what the worst games of 2016 were, so you can steer clear of them or kick yourself in the head for actually playing them. Let's begin. The first of the worst begins with a game published by Telltale, of all companies, and I'm not talking about their episodic games either. I'm talking about 7 Days to Die, developed by the Fun Pimps. You know, like this guy. Looking good, playa. You'll get all the trickly puffs for sure, you fucking beta. 7 Days to Die is a roguelite open-world zombie survival game with world-destroying, crafting, and scavenging elements. To be fair, the game is still in early access on Steam for 3 fucking years, and the current ratings are fucking awful. Let me be clear, I'm only talking about the console ports of the game. Here's a special situation when the PC version is actually the one being prioritized over the console releases. Steam reviews are actually mostly positive, with users enjoying the defense and crafting elements, but also stating that it's very grindy. As for the PS4 and Xbox One ports, the fucking weapons are falling to the ground, enemies no-clip all over the place, and some gameplay systems are just plain broken. And the interface is also horribly optimized for the consoles. It has barely legible font sizes and a slow cursor menu system. It uses a fucking cursor. At this point, I can't believe Telltale is even supporting this game on the console. Shame on you guys. Oh god, this is gonna be painful, isn't it? Alright, let's move on to the next one. Oh, and great, this one hits me closer to home too. Trials of the Blood Dragon by Red Lynx. I love you guys, I really do, and I'm so sorry to do this. I've always greatly appreciated the support you've given me over the years, but this has to be done. Trials Evolution and Fusion have to be the games I've clocked the most amount of hours into, but it was a little overdue since we've had a new one. Then at the past E3 we were treated to a very cringeworthy presentation of a new Blood Dragon game, but it wasn't Far Cry, it was a new Trials game, and many people absolutely hated that. Naively enough, I was one of those who was actually hopeful for the game. Then it came out to having not much of anything new, no freaking track editor, which is the best part of any of the Trials games, and to top it off, it cost almost as much, if not just as much, as a new Trials game did. I don't understand. This should have been a DLC for Fusion, not separate. Then we could have at least used those new assets for track creation. I, like many others, was just very disappointed in Red Lynx. You guys really need to step it up next time. We need a real new Trials game now. The next game on the list is definitely one you'll see on other people's worst of the year, and this is ReCore. Now, the thing with this game is I kind of saw a little bit of it earlier, but it was released under my radar. The main gameplay of ReCore was to be a competitive multiplayer shooter that featured AI zombies that could attack either team. I thought a gameplay mechanic like this would work better in a Call of Duty Zombies game, but apparently Capcom thought it would work best under their Resident Evil franchise, and well, it didn't. I'll admit I was a little bit excited for this because it seemed like a little cool idea. Then ReCore ended up being a terrible competitive shooter with clunky shooting controls, terrible balancing, a very bad movement system, and overall just boring game modes. Well, there's not really much more to say about that, but there is actually some good news for the whole franchise, as after playing the Resident Evil 7 demo, I can safely say that the game is finally headed in the right direction. This next game I know absolutely nothing about. Supposedly it's a stealth game that takes place during the Cold War and World War II. The player takes on the role of a KGB agent recruited by the CIA. The game originally boasted of a non-linear design, allowing players to either go into a level shooting everyone or go completely stealth. Yeah, like we've heard that one a million times before. But this game was extra specially bad in that regard. Keynes Gun was a game that seemed to have some pretty good ideas, but was overall executed extremely poorly. Critics complained of having to deal with some of the dumbest AI in stealth game history, hideous graphics, terrible cutscenes, all in an overall buggy package. You'd be 100 times better off playing Metal Gear Solid 5 100 times over again before even thinking about playing this game. Very easily the worst stealth game of the year, also making it just one of the worst games of the year. Many of us remember the original Homefront game having a very mixed response. Many people hated it and some actually enjoyed it, if mostly because of the setting. If you don't already know, the setting of Homefront is it's pretty much the the movie Red Dawn, but instead of the Russians invading the US, it's North Korea. A little over a year after the first release, a sequel called Homefront The Revolution was announced to be developed by Crytek, as the previous studio went out of business. The concept of this game was to be open world that had many districts to explore, and also a scavenging mechanic to modify weapons and equipment. Being an open world game, it also gave the player the ability to choose what missions they wanted to take. All would seem like a cool idea, that was until Crytek lost the rights to the franchise, and it had to be finalized by Deep Silver. And we all know what happens when an unfinished game is given to Deep Silver, right? They turn into pieces of shit. Not because of the developer, but because the lack of funds put to the development. That lack of funds gave the final release way too many technical issues, a very lackluster narrative, monotonous and awkward gameplay, and completely forgettable characters. Homefront The Revolution was just a very depressing failure of 2016. I think it's obvious that we'd be doing this one. As we can all remember, the trailer for this game was the most disliked trailer of all time on YouTube, so this game already had a horrible start way before its release. We're just sick of Call of Duty, but it seems like only the new ones. The trailer wasn't the only reason why this game was one of the worst of the year, and you might think the last reason isn't very legitimate, but it makes a point. A few months after the trailer premiered, the beta for Infinite Warfare came out, and surprisingly many of the professional and YouTube Call of Duty players hated it. Even the people who still enjoyed Black Ops 3 when the gameplay literally ripped off of Titanfall, they didn't even like this one. Then there were the completely unbalanced drop packs that would give overpowered weapons, making it a pay-to-win game. Now we get to the final offense the game committed, and it's actually not the developer's fault. It's Activision's. I'm referring to the Legacy Edition, and purchasing that for $80 was the only way to play Modern Warfare Remastered. I know many people believe it was smart for Activision to package it with Infinite Warfare, but in reality it wasn't. It wasn't because in the game sales for Infinite Warfare were less than half of Black Ops 3. It shows that this bundle did not help their sales because no one wanted to play Infinite Warfare. The point of it is, Activision had very little confidence in this game from the beginning. Moving on. Well, this just fucking wrecks my credibility. Alright, I don't know much about the Mafia series, but I do have a friend that reveres it as one of his favorite games. Well, just Mafia 2 more specifically. While it wasn't a fantastic game, it did have very solid gameplay with a highly regarded storyline that added much needed character to a story about the mob. Okay, so they got a good story down. All they need to improve on is the gameplay, right? Then they'll have a great sequel. Well, no, obviously not in this case. When Mafia 3 was released 6 years after the second one, the critics still praised the story, characters, and themes. They did, however, highly criticize on what the developers could have worked on, the gameplay, with most critics only calling it functional at best. Ouch. Sorry, bud. Not to mention the completely empty feeling open world and the big T, technical issues. Now, I don't know if this developer had a lack of funds or what, or maybe it was time constraints, but nonetheless, another huge disappointment, probably just as much as the next game. A little while back, I made my own review of this game, and I could talk hours upon hours about how terrible it is. ReCore was to be one of the great Xbox One exclusives, and it would have made me proud to own the console. It was also being co-developed by the creators of Metroid Prime, so it couldn't fail. I was even more hopeful because Sony screwed up big time with the PlayStation 4 Pro, and I thought Microsoft would take advantage of that by launching a brand new IP that could sell more Xboxes. The nightmare scenario soon came true. If you want to see my full review of ReCore, it'll be linked in the description below. The first thing that worried me was the fact that it was turned into more of a smaller arcade-like game, and that would cost half as much as a full AAA title. I still remained hopeful, however. Then when the game finally came out, well, for one, it was extremely short, ending with a few ridiculously difficult levels. The graphics were also very primitive, with subpar platforming and game mechanics that were satisfying for just a very short moment. Oh yeah, and there's the fact that it wasn't even finished. There was at least one or maybe even more dungeons that required a core bot that you could never even get. Last but not least, the dungeon challenges were just the worst because they were hard as hell for one thing, and if you failed, you had to finish them, sit through 2 long-ass loading screens just to start over and fail again. Microsoft, you really fucked this one up. Oh boy, this one and the last one are really gonna be hard to get through. Mighty number 9. Doesn't that just hurt hearing the name? Then the funny thing is, ReCore was actually co-developed by Concept, so I think we know why ReCore did so bad. This was a game that a sad, poor friend of mine was highly anticipating. He even went as far to fund over $300 of the game, and he still didn't get all his rewards for that. Mighty No. 9's crowdfunding aftermath was a huge disaster, and even that disaster couldn't prepare anyone for the massive disappointment that launched. For starters, Mighty No. 9 had some good ideas, but much like Keynes Gun, those ideas had poor execution. Well, maybe not as bad as Keynes Gun, but still. Mighty No. 9 also had a gigantic hype train following it, which also makes it seem worse. Critics claim that the game challenges were pointlessly frustrating and they were only, well, challenging one time around. Many also complained of the shoddy art design, too severe of punishments, and much of the content seemed blatantly recycled from Mega Man games. Many stated that it barely even felt like a Mega Man game at times, and if in some way it did, it was one of the terrible ones. I find the worst thing that it suffered from were technical issues, and on the Wii U of all consoles. The one console most would probably buy it for crashed often. Clearly Mighty No. 9 wasn't delayed nearly long enough. Here comes the last game. It's No Man's Sky. While not the worst game of the year, it is by far the most disappointing game of 2016. So much so that it actually made me completely forget that Mighty No. 9 ever existed. Let's talk about how retarded the hype was for this game. It was very much so. So many people thought you would never run out of things to do and you would never get bored. Even I believe that shit. No Man's Sky is the most overhyped game I have ever seen in my life. Our good friend Sean Murray, I hate you so much, promised over 18 quintillion planets with infinite possibilities and never-ending fun gameplay. So it was really one man's lie. Haven't heard that one before, huh? Well, it certainly was some man's fucking lie. People thought this would have been the greatest game ever made, and they seemed all too genuine to that naive idea. Well, the first lie is the procedurally generated infinite number of planets. The thing is, all the flora, fauna, and terrain are all built on a finite number of assets, so then you end up getting retarded looking Frankenstein creatures that just look stupid. Next up, our good old buddy Sean Murray originally said that there was no multiplayer, but then he said you could run into players, but it was extremely small chance. And then proof surfaced with a video of a stream with two people on the same planet in the same spot, and they couldn't even see each other. The dirty little liar Sean Murray also boasted that players will have infinite things to do in this game, but the fact of the matter is you could theoretically explore the procedurally generated planets and mine forever, but that's fucking boring. This game is fucking boring. All you do is grind for literally nothing. Oh yeah, and let's not forget the technical issues and the bugs that plague the ever-living crap out of this game. No clipping through the ground, animals glitching out everywhere, and lastly, all that shit cost $60 fucking dollars. Even if this game was good, I would have never paid $60 for it. But you can blame that on Sony. You can also blame Sony for marketing the hell out of this game and creating such a hype train that should have never existed. Fuck this game. Alright, I'm done. I'm so done right now. That was so painful. But it's finally over, just like this shitty year is. To be fair, it wasn't the worst year in video gaming, and if you want some good news in that regard, head on over to my top 10 best games of 2016. Let me know in the comments the games that made your 2016 worse. Well, that's it for this video. Please remember to hit the like button if you enjoyed, share with all the people you know, and please subscribe to my channel for countdowns, reviews, and commentary videos out every Sunday. Have a better one out there.